Hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants, and we're here with Fridays with Sandy Kreisberg, the founder and CEO of HBSguru.com.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday.
At the Harvard Business School. And we have really an unusual candidate. Great stats, man. 760 GMAT, 3.9 plus GPA from UCLA, majored in economics and business.
Summa cum laude, that's also important.
Yeah, super important, very impressive. We won't hold the white male thing against him. And he's got a really interesting job with the PGA where he's helping out with fan engagement. He's got an interesting group of schools that he's targeting, including Wharton, Darden, and let me see who else. Kellogg, Fuqua, McCombs, and Owen. That's Vanderbilt. Sandy, what do you think?
Well, I think he's going to get into those schools, given the very powerful stats. What we're talking about here is a guy with a 3.93 Summa, that in the Summa part counts, from UCLA, which is a respectable school, a 760 GMAT, and a pretty interesting job working for the PGA Tour. Jeff, why don't you tell us what the PGA Tour is?
Yeah, so the PGA Tour, the easiest way to think of it is I like to say it's the NFL or the NBA of golf. So it is the premier professional golf tour and golf league in the world.
Good. Are there some stats you could put onto that, like how many people work there? Is there some revenue number or sales number or anything like that?
We have about 1,000 people globally who work for the tour, just a few people internationally at some of our remote offices, but mainly everyone is based in the US. And the PGA Tour, I have to look up the exact revenue number, but I believe it's around $1 billion a year in revenue.
That's real important because that means you're working for a big company, and the demands of working in that kind of environment are one's business schools respect.
And a highly selective job, because it's hard to get a job at the PGA.
That's true too. Okay, now you've got this title, Fan Engagement Research Assistant. You've told us that's your official title. And if it is, you kind of have to go with that. But how would you describe what you do? Like, what do you research?
So our team measures, we do measurement, reporting, research, and analytics on anything our fans are doing and where they're consuming. So across the TV and digital and the app and social media, we try and present that one view of the fan, and we help other departments across the tour use that to inform strategy and make better decisions.
I'm not sure I know what that means. Give me some examples. Like, give me three projects.
So one big project was basically redoing our fan segmentation. So knowing who are really hypercore fans, who are more casual fans, and then using that to tell, for example, the broadcast team, like, we want to put more statistics in the telecast because the hypercore fans really love golf statistics and we got to engage them more. So that would be a brief example.
What about statistics that are used by advertisers? That strikes me as the most obvious reason for the stats.
Yeah, so we're heavily involved with the corporate partnership team that does all the sponsorship sales. And so that's where a lot of the measurement and reporting comes in on how we're progressing year over year and week over week with our tournament consumption.
All right, I just want to get this real super clear. Tell me what you do on a typical day.
A typical day would be measuring and analyzing the results from the past week's tournament, so TV consumption and social media consumption, digital visits.
And that's data that you buy or that's available or it's out there?
It's data through our owned and operated platforms and also from third parties like Nielsen.
Yeah, okay.
So you're already in the heart of a data analytics job.
Yeah, heavily involved in analytics.
Yeah, to some extent, the PGA part of it is interesting, but it's more like an analyst job. You could be working for any corporation or any big outfit, right? You'd be doing the same kind of stuff.
Right.
But working for the PGA is just, people love golf. Business schools love golf. It's a plus. The fact that you're the fan engagement research assistant, you told me that's your official title, even though even if you had analyst, it might be better, but they'll live with that and see through it.
That's an idea. Could you get them to just change your title to analyst?
Potentially. I've not had those conversations, but it'd be an option potentially.
Yeah, you want to know my 75 years of life experience answer to that question?
Yeah,
harder than you think.
But offline, I'll remind everyone here. We have conversations before we actually go online and record. We found out that Jeff reports directly to the vice president of fan engagement, and he should definitely have that in his resume.
That's the first line of your resume. Report to the vice president for fan engagement. Duties include blah, 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 and blah. After you've described what the PGA Tour is, okay, a nonprofit organization that runs the blah, blah, blah events, and then there are some statistics you mentioned that are very powerful, including revenues or number of people involved. So you're working for like a big outfit. It really it's important to convey that. It's not some niche country club hole in the wall. Good. Man, John, what do you think this guy's chances are at Harvard? Now, you said you want to go to, what are your choices, Jeff?
Wharton, Kellogg, Darden, McCombs, and Owen are the ones that I have targeted right now, and Fuqua.
Yeah, boy, you should be a walk-in at all of those places except maybe Wharton, where you should get in, but you never can tell. What do you think his chances are at Harvard, John?
I'd say they're pretty good because the stats are exceptional. He has a public Ivy undergraduate degree. He is in an unusual job doing a basic business function, data analytics. So it takes you out of the pool of bankers, consultants, and others, which is oversubscribed, and puts you in a special place.
Yeah, particularly for the white male bucket. You stand out in that bucket. I don't know.
Everyone doesn't want to go to Harvard.
Well, Jeff, would you like to go to Harvard? Or you hadn't thought about it, or you prefer to go to? What's that?
I hadn't thought about it yet.
Well, I think about it, man. You know what Sandy says. The experience is pretty similar at all business schools. You're buying the
brand.
The brand, yeah, exactly. And it's a pretty good brand.
Now, all the MBA programs at your on your target list are very, very good. Obviously, they're all great, fantastic programs. Your post-MBA goal is what?
To transition into management consulting.
Okay.
Yeah, you could do that anywhere, but it's still worth going to Harvard just for the networking, man. For that reason alone. In any of these business schools you mentioned, you can get a job at McKinsey, BCG, or Bain. They all hire at those places, although it would be easier at Harvard. So BCG, McKinsey, and Bain actually have a hard time at Harvard because the Harvard graduates are interested. They've already been there, and they're interested in going to like private equity. Okay, so Harvard would be
an advantage. You might think that at Harvard, the competition to go to MBB would be stiff. It's probably less competitive on some level.
It is.
Would
it's just
be
right.
Other schools on your list.
Yeah.
But Sandy, wait, what are his odds at Harvard? What do you think his odds are?
Boy, I think his odds of getting interviewed are like 30, 40, 50% or more. And then it's just a matter of not screwing up the interview, which could happen to anyone.
Yeah, and Jeff comes across as a personable, likable, articulate guy. So I can't imagine that he's going to screw up the interview.
Yeah, well, people screw up the interviews for crazy reasons, but
They get
right.
nervous.
Yeah, well, or there's just a mismatch. That's a whole topic for another day. But I would apply to Harvard. Man, I'd throw one into Stanford too, to tell you the truth. Stanford goes for these stats. Stanford goes for people overcoming adversity and people with high stats. They've got two buckets there. You may not have overcome a lot of adversity, but by how they define it. But man, I'd look into it. Have you ever researched Stanford or spoken to people who've been there?
Not since undergraduate applications.
Well, you don't hold that against them. My guess is you're a lot stronger now than you were when you applied as an undergraduate. So I'd look at Stanford. They go for this kind of thing, and there's a lot of golf. Don't they have a golf course, John?
At Stanford? Oh, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I think they do. Okay, here's like let's do some quick mock interviewing here. A classic question would be, tell me what you want to do after you graduate, and then in 10 years, and then where do you see yourself at, the top of your career?
So my long-term goal would be actually to get back involved in the sports industry in some way as a leader. There's been a trend recently where it used to be only former athletes and coaches and would end up either in the front office of a team or a league. But now there's actually a wave of people coming from outside industries like consulting and lawyers, because as the sports industry gets complicated every day with new media landscape and sports gambling, and of course with the pandemic has changed a lot of things too, they're going to need people who have a lot of different experiences to lead the way and continue to bring, all the good that sports brings to communities and to people. So that's definitely where I see myself long term.
Yeah, good. That's a good answer, and it brings up a lot of issues about sports that may not come to mind right away. Name someone whose job you want in 15 years or 20 years.
The first one that comes to mind is actually the commissioner of the WNBA, Kathy Engelbert, I believe. And she was a great example of, she spent, I think, her entire career at Deloitte before going into sports. So she didn't even have any sports experience, but now she has the chance to head up that league and make it bigger and better and keep growing the game in that regard.
Good. Where are the growth areas in sports generally? And what are the challenges, so to speak?
I think the biggest one that's topical right now is sports gambling. Just over the last few years, leagues and teams are very hesitant to adopt those abilities to work with gaming partners and things like that. But now it's just exploding, and it's a huge revenue source. So that's definitely one that's changing rapidly every day.
Who are the big players in that game?
All of your main official betting operators like DraftKings or BetMGM. Even you have companies like Penn Gaming that are getting involved, and so it's really becoming a pretty massive space.
Could you see yourself being a leader at a company like that, like CEO of DraftKings? Is that a job you might be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely that long-term vision is not limited to directly a league or team, but any of the endemic companies like a media company, a sports agency, or gambling company is a great example of that as well.
Good. John, you got any typical interview questions for a guy like Jeff?
I'm going to just make the observation that he answered every one of your questions in a clear and concise and convincing way.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear you now say, okay, what are his odds of an admit at Harvard based on, this brief interview?
I think within the white male bucket, you're a powerful applicant. You've got great stats. You've got excellent jobs, and just talking to you, looking at you, and doing this mini mock interview, I think you'll do a great job at the interview. You're controlled, you're concise, and and you're to the point, which is what they look for. So,
And I love that his role model is a woman from Deloitte. Seriously.
that's the one answer where I think the possible negative is not worth the positive. In other words, particularly if you're being interviewed by a woman and she says, "Who's your role model?" and you say a woman, you know, even an established one, she might go, "Oh, this guy is just shucking me, man." I'm just saying that's an outside chance.
No, but he's totally authentic and genuine here. It's not BS.
Right. Okay.
There are other options I could have.
No, go with your gut. I think that's a good answer, man.
Yeah, go with John. And I'm just saying that as a way out there risk. That's all. If she's your guy, if she's a model, go with her, and she's a good answer.
I mean, the other thing is, why sports? What is it about that field that makes you think it's such a great industry for an MBA?
I think because traditionally it hasn't had a lot of MBAs. Like I mentioned before, it had typically been your former athletes, former coaches who would become athletic directors or league commissioners or team presidents. And as the sports industry has just evolved leaps and bounds in the last 10 years, even it needs those people who have, that leadership skill set.
Let me ask you this, Jeff. What are the trends in team ownership? Is this still for, rich guys who made their money someplace else?
For team ownership, yes, for the most part, although Alex Rodriguez just bought a majority stake in the Timberwolves. So I guess he didn't make his money somewhere else. He made it in sports, albeit an athlete. But for team ownership, those are pretty hefty price tags. So that's been the theme for now.
But how come it's just, are some team owners like a conglomerate of guys? Or is it just the one, fat cat?
There are some instances where it's a group of investors. I think the Dodgers, most notably, would be one of those where Magic Johnson's involved, but he's not the end-all be-all of the ownership team. Yeah,
or Derek Jeter with the Marlins.
Yeah. Okay. Jeff, thanks for coming on the show. Your chances. Please check out Harvard and Stanford. You've got okay chances there. You got all that going for you, and I think you'd have a great run at either one of those places. You'd have a great run at Wharton and the other schools you mentioned. And the advantage of Harvard is just the networking possibilities. You could meet team owners there. Unbelievable people pass through there. It's just something to consider.
And the same thing you said about Harvard is true of Stanford. MBB has a hard time getting Stanford grads as well. So, oddly enough, Harvard and Stanford put you in a really good spot for an MBB job.
Oh, yeah. You're not going to have a trouble getting that job. The question is, do you think he needs it, John?
I think that experience would be invaluable to him and would be like a secondary graduate degree.
Yeah.
Going to a McKinsey Bain BCG, like any sports team would scoop you up.
Yeah, well, let's say he gets an offer from McKinsey and he gets an offer from the Dodgers. What would you tell him to do?
I'd go to the Dodgers.
So would I.
Play Moneyball, man. Play Moneyball.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Hey, Jeff, good luck to you.
Thanks for joining us.
Really, your big decision is going to be, do you apply to Harvard and Stanford if you really want? Is that not what you want? Otherwise, we think you've got a great shot at any of these schools. Wharton, you never know, but the stats say yes. Kellogg and Darden would be great places to get to MBB, incidentally. So
you're a total Kellogg type, man.
Yeah, you are actually. You'd be great at Kellogg. They would love you. Darden would love you, incidentally, and you'd be great there. And that's they're putting a lot of people I think their number one recruiter now is McKinsey at Darden. So, all right, good luck to you. And Sandy, thanks yet again. You've been watching Fridays with Sandy. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Have a great week.